Good afternoon. This is the Jazz Show, WBAI. A repeat by request.
Popular demand.
Popular demand, that's right. Of
Doing well.
the big broadcast. This is the second big broadcast of 1964.
It's not quite as big, though, because Edgar Blakeney isn't here.
That's right. Those of us who are here are Ira Gitler, David Himmelstein, Don Schlitten, and myself. Myself being Dan Morganstern. I don't feel like myself.
Danny Morganstern.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if you care to step into our boudoir and join us for some...
Boudoir? It's more like a meat locker in here.
This is WCIA, isn't it?
Yeah.
I expect to see sides of beef hanging up.
I get the feeling you're a little chilled to the bone.
Yes, to the marrow.
Well, it's a good thing it's a bit chilly out there because that means that we have more people listening because it was a nice sunny day. They'd all be out on the beach grooving and they couldn't care less about what was on the air.
Shame on him.
But since we are here, and before we get totally confused, let's play a record. And the first record, that's what we're going to do this afternoon, is play records. And the first one
Don't despair.
features Nat King Cole at the piano. He was quite a piano player. And Buddy Rich on drums, and John Simmons on bass, and the late Herbie Hamer, whose date it was, on saxophone. And it's called Laguna Lee. And the sound effects that you heard were not taped.
I like to hear Nat King Cole play right now. You know?
Yeah, somebody
Well,
should
yeah.
record him.
Let's call him up.
I played that record about... Wait a minute.
But
So was I.
Toots, I think. Toots proves, the old saw about it's not what instrument you're playing, but what you do with the instrument, because he plays the hell out of the harmonica. Sorry to say hell on the station. I think so.
I think so, yeah.
And
It's
this
too late
is,
now anyway.
yeah, right. This is a thing he did for Riverside back about 1950, the end of 57. I don't know, the two sessions, I don't know which one this particular track comes from. But it's an unusual instrumentation of harmonica and Pepper Adams on baritone, with Cook and rhythm section of Kenny Drew on piano, Wilbur Ware on bass, and Art Taylor on drums. And they do a thing which is more associated with Louis Armstrong, something written by Lil Armstrong, Strutting with Some Barbecue. Toots Thielmans and Pepper Adams, Kenny Drew, Wilbur Ware, and Art Taylor.
Crazy rhythm, man. And that was very relaxed. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the whole LP is very relaxed. I don't know.
You get a good rhythm section together, and you got it made.
Well, you need the good horn players. And
Yeah,
front
but
players.
if the rhythm section is really superb, and assuming that the
Yeah,
horn players
yeah.
are good, then the horn players have half the battle won. They can just sit down and just slide along with it.
Nice tune to improvise on, too.
Not bad.
I can't think of it being done by modern groups, except I think Cannonball with Gil Evans.
Yeah, and Pony Poindexter with Dexter Gordon.
Oh yeah, and that
And
epic
epic.
thing.
You try Stan Getz, too.
Starting with
Who
some
quotes
barbecue. He quotes it. That was accidental, I think. It
Didn't
just came up.
Jufrey and Brookmeyer record that too on that Traditionalism album?
No, not that
I
one.
don't think so. No.
Is it Sweet Like This by King Oliver?
There's a love in my life.
Well, we're going to go on with some music, I suppose. We might as well hear the composer of... I don't think it was Lil, really. It sounds
she
like
gets
Louis,
credit.
she gets the,
Yeah, it
the
sounds
credit
like-
for it, but it's...
Well, they had a litigation over it, and it's supposed to be her tune.
Yeah, I'm sure it's her
She wrote
property.
some-
Community property.
Yeah.
You know what she wrote also? She wrote Just for a Thrill.
Thrill, yeah.
Ray
Pretty
Charles made famous.
I don't know, it's something about the tune itself that sounds like...
Louis Frehley.
Well, they were
Lang, you
together
know.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what they say about married couples.
Yeah.
Don't say it.
Yeah, watch out, you're in bad company.
Not in this station, you know.
Well, I said hell already.
This Louis Armstrong record is made in the company of Louis Jordan, who plays alto and sings, and it was made with Louis Jordan's group, the Timpani Five, and it's called You Rascal You. A little novelty number. Right? You Rascal You, Louis Armstrong, Louis Jordan and his Timpani Five.
That was Sonny Payne's daddy playing drums.
Yeah, there you go.
Beautiful record.
Swing.
He has a way of turning a phrase.
I think Louis Jordan was very underrated as far as recognition is concerned as a jazz musician. I think he had something kind of unique. I really dug him.
You did.
Well, he's still working occasionally.
No, but he never got the critical acclaim that other musicians got
Well,
because he was
because
busy making money.
Right,
And of
he
course
was a popular artist.
He was a pop artist, and his material was pop. But behind it all, just like Nat King Cole behind the King Cole Trio, Louis Jordan was a good musician.
Sure, well, in those days, musicians would entertain and then they'd play some music. And I think they converted a lot of people. I think Louis Jordan must have converted, well, thousands of people to jazz without them even knowing.
I know some of the earliest jazz records I heard were Louis Jordan records.
Those ones we were playing at your house then.
Yeah. My brother used to rummage through the old bins, get them for 9 cents, 19 cents, those old Decca 78s.
Yeah, those were the good old days.
It's good pop music.
Savoy Sultans.
I wish we could play 78s here. Of course, you just played one on a tape, but I wish we had a turntable where we could play old 78s. Treasure trove.
Or else the companies would start reissuing some of those things.
Speaking of record companies and titles they've given different things, the record we're going to listen to now is what was called, or is called, West Coast Jazz. Of course, it's all made by New York musicians. Zoot Sims, Bobby Brookmeyer, Conte Condoli, Claude Williamson piano, Red Mitchell bass, Stan Levy drums, and drum Kearns Long Ago and Far Away. Long Ago and Far Away with Zoot Sims, Bobby Brookmeyer, Conte Condoli, Claude Williamson, Red Mitchell, and Stan Levy. One of those easygoing, swinging things that people refer to as West Coast jazz.
Well, that was one of the better aspects of West Coast. Yeah.
Well, I'm being sarcastic when I use that term. I think it's just a good swinging record.
Well, it's like any other music within jazz that gets a name on it, and then people that want to condemn everything by slapping that label, and that's it.
What was interesting about this particular record and many records from this period that Zoot was featured on was that he who influenced so many tenor players, I think, was extremely strong influence when he was living out on the West Coast during that time by Jack Montrose. He really got that
tighter phrasing,
syncopated thing going, and I think it's very strong on the records he made with Clifford Brown.
Those are Jack Montrose arrangements.
Well,
not to be confused with J.R. Montrose.
No.
I used to call him West Coast Jack and East Coast Jake.
No,
more like
Miles crept in.
Yeah, but remember Conte on the old Chubby Jackson
Yeah, well, he's
records,
a lot like
and
this.
There was a great deal of individuality that seeped in even at that time.
Oh yeah, although
It was a good 10, 15 years before this record.
But I don't know, just the general sound of this period, I think, Chet was so prominent at that time.
Yeah, that was when he was with Lips. And Lips is on that too, jamming and it sounds a little raucous, but Paul was. He does in this too, where he at that time he was with the Basie band, and the real reason why I'm playing this one, certainly because of Paul, but also because it does give us a chance to hear Count Basie on organ, and this is a kind of organ playing that's a little different from the currently fashionable Jimmy Smith, Jack McDuff groove, which is a fine groove, but this is somewhat different. This is the old Basie line to play organ from Fats Waller, and then he put that Kansas City beat in there. And here, for a change, he does stretch out a little bit. And this is a thing called Sequel with Freddie Green on guitar, and Walter Page on bass, and Gus Johnson on drums. Here it is.
It was me.
Wow. Count Basie house party.
The Count Basie move?
That's had to sound like a whole. And he had us fooled that time. We used to play it on Dr. Jive's show or something. This is when I was working at Prestige in the packing department, and we used to listen to that every afternoon to see if they were playing Prestige records. And he'd always play this, and he had me for a while. I thought it was Prince.
Yeah.
Because he got a certain sound like
Press.
like the early '50s Prince. That wide sound.
The only one who followed Lester through the later stages too, and then he got something that nobody else got.
Yeah, but he always had something of his own too.
Yeah.
Last I heard he was working for the post office.
Yeah, I heard that he was gigging out in Newark, playing like weekends and stuff. But that was some time ago.
Newark is a wonderful place to spend a vacation. I was going to spend my vacation there, and I was glad I didn't because they had a fire
In Newark?
in a hotel recently. It was, you know,
Oh,
a joke.
There's lots of places.
You gotta leave that as like a John O'Hara.
John O'Hara doesn't even know where Newark is.
It's not in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
It's not near Mahoney City.
Did you see the story in the New Yorker recently, by the way, John O'Hara's story?
I spent
Quite
my days
depressing
in
story, but it was about musicians. And it mentioned Steve Brown, the bass player with Paul Whiteman,
Dick
said he had
McDonough.
just switched from
Yeah.
Gold Cat to Whiteman. It's funny what kind of bags people get into. But
Probably found an old downbeat in his attic and it inspired him to write a story.
he goofed on Body and Soul, though, because there isn't really a key change. There's a key change.
No, he was saying there was a key change in that particular arrangement. I think.
Yeah, they put in a key and he couldn't play it.
Yeah, because the bridge was,
He kept playing the way it was written.
Yeah.
yeah, the bridge was hard enough to begin with.
He was a
said.
pretty funny kid.
Yeah.
And this arranger put in a key change in the.
I'm glad to see everybody
He
here.
hated high notes.
Well, I've got one here by Thelonious Monk.
Don't light matches on the air.
And please, in the future, clean your pipe.
He's been
When the
ignoring
records are-
all the civilized rules of having a discussion on the air.
Well, pipe smokers are a breed of.
Unbelievable. He was, you hear him sniffing on it.
Well, to get back to
I have a
Thelonious.
silent cigar here.
Yeah, the silent cigar. Silent sound. Tonight at Carnegie Hall, Monk is going to be playing, and I understand he's going to play some solo piano at the beginning and end of the concert. So this is a solo recorded on an album called Thelonious Himself, and this is Monk playing what to me is one of the great tunes, a very durable tune, a tune that has been recorded by so many people, and you can hear it over and over and over again, and it never loses its freshness. And that's Around Midnight. Very funny, very funny. Thelonious Monk from Thelonious Himself and Round Midnight. And we'll be back in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
What analysis?
Not bad.
Shall we give it 5 stars then?
5 stars. it is.
Ira has to give it 5 stars.
Oh, that's right.
He's a,
If you hit me on the elbow, I'll give it 100.
Ira is suffering from an elbow ailment today.
Yes, I was down in the Virgin Islands where I picked up a bad case of Mogo on the Go-Go, which is right near Puddleby on the Marsh.
Did
Remember
you run
Dr.
into
Dolittle?
Yeah. Oh, did you run into Harold Bissonette while you were there?
Bissonnet.
Accent au grand.
Present Suites.
That sounds good.
He's talking about a record.
Oh, I
remember?
see.
A record. Back to the music.
I was at
John.
the Paramount lot of about 1937, and I just saw Jack Norton, and I was a little shocked by the Pleasant
He
Suite.
was sober.
This is Present Suites. Lester Young with long hair in the 1950s. With Harry Sweets Edison, his former co-bandmate. It's one word.
No hyphen?
No, in the Basie band. And doing with the Oscar Peterson trio, Oscar on piano, Ray Brown on bass, Herb Ellis guitar, and Buddy Rich on drums. And they do up the Basie anthem, 1 o'clock jump. The president, Lester Young, with Harry Sweets Edison on trumpet, and really, wasn't that beautiful? Sweets.
Beautiful.
Oscar Peterson, wailing, and Buddy Rich on drums.
Very good
Beautiful record.
Very good record.
Swung a little bit.
Is it That's All. It's an LP. I don't know if they cut it out at Verve.
Is it still in the catalog?
It's available. It has That's All on it too. It's a very, if you're in that frame of mind, it's a very rending
Rendition.
rendition.
Well, I'm playing a first.
Da-da-da-da-da.
That was Ray Nance playing Spellbound, with Paul Neves on piano, Ahmed Abdul-Malik bass, and Walter Perkins drums, on a forthcoming Prestige recording under the name of Ahmed Abdul-Malik.
And don't forget, you heard it first on WBAI.
Right.
Well, we heard you say take one. That was the take.
Yeah, this is the tape, the actual
No,
tape.
the take. I mean, that was it. They didn't do
First
any more.
take.
Yes, that's right.
They did it in
One
take.
take, and that was it. And when it was all done, Ray just sat there, and I slapped him on the back, and I said, beautiful, and looked at me like I was crazy. Everybody else agreed with me, and then we went into the control room to listen to it, And when we came out, Ray had a short smile on his face, and everything was cool.
Well, if I remember correctly, Ray also played some trumpet, or rather cornet, on that day. And we didn't plan this in advance, but it so happens that one of the records I did bring along is by Duke Ellington, and it does have Ray Nance on trumpet, because then he hadn't switched to cornet yet. This is called Stomp, Look, and Listen, and there is a very cute trumpet chase between Willie Cook and Ray Nance. Willie is the first trumpeter, and you'll also hear some good drumming by Sam Woodyard, and of course the unique sound of the Duke Ellington Band, and this track is topped off by yet a third trumpet player, this being the stratospheric Cat Anderson. So here it is. That was not Don Cherry, but Cat Anderson with the Duke Ellington Band, and also Willie Cook, who is one of, I think I could say, our favorite trumpet players, because we all like him, and who very rarely gets a chance to do things on record. Unfortunately, he's not with Duke anymore. Unfortunately, he's never done an album of his own.
It's strange, considering how many musicians have done albums of their own.
Yeah, and he's been around for a while.
Ray Nance has never done an album on his own either.
That's true, too.
But Cat Anderson has.
Yeah.
On the Strand label, which I was fortunate enough to pick up for 89 cents recently, with Cat Anderson and Ray Nance playing a beautiful version of A Flower Is a Lovesome Thing. Very worthwhile buy.
Cat also made one on MRC with a big band. Folks on that.
I remember that one.
We call Cat on the Hot Tin Roof, in case anybody is interested.
Cat on the Hot Tin
Oh, that's right.
I wanted to mention the trombone player. This was another very underrated, to use that overworked word, trombone player, Britt Woodman, very fine player, and Jimmy Hamilton was in clarinet. And
Britt rehearsed one day at the Little Theater with Lucky's band, and it was just tremendous. The range, after listening to, most trombonists.
They had to have him in the hip version of The Wizard of Oz.
He has tremendous chops. He can hit higher notes, true notes on a trombone.
Well, he's the guy that got Mingus listening to Duke, according to Charles.
Yeah.
It's something to listen to.
Yeah, but they grew up together.
Yeah, out in California.
Yeah. Well, I think Ira's got a goodie coming up here.
Well, Lady Day, Billie Holiday, from a date which was made on June 7th, 1940. 24 years tomorrow, as the calendar flies. And it's called I'm Pulling Through. I don't know who wrote this. You aware of it?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was Irene Wilson, Teddy's then wife, who also wrote
Some of the Spring.
Some of the Spring and Ghost of Yesterday.
Well, it's a beautiful song, whoever wrote it, and it has a particularly poignant solo by Lester Young, who once again shows how to make each note mean something. Billie Holiday, Lester Young, and I'm Pulling Through. Billie Holiday, and I'm Pulling Through, with solo by Lester Young, and I failed to mention the wonderful obligatos, trumpet obligatos by Roy Eldridge and fills. And did you dig the way Roy played this little phrase right at the end of Billie's first chorus, and Prez picked it up and used it in his solo?
Those records are so beautiful. I think beautiful is the right word for them. And the way everybody was together there. They're just like love records.
And no matter who played on, the sidemen, even if there were sidemen that were maybe on one or two, they fit right in, got right in the mood.
Everybody played above there.
Teddy Wilson.
Those were really some of the greatest records ever made. I mean, without being prejudiced or cute or exaggerating in any way, they really were.
Yeah, well, regardless of schools or personal tastes, I think there's nobody who you'll come across who likes jazz or loves it that doesn't dig those records.
Right.
I mean, that's where it is.
Right.
If they don't, they're in bad trouble.
To see everything, the way she sings, the lyrics, it just they have a form.
Complete performances.
I think we are,
Masterpieces.
to give credit where credit is due, John Hammond was responsible for a lot of those records.
Well, bless him then.
That's not,
What can I say? Keep up the good work.
I hope he's feeling better.
Yeah,
At least till 1940.
well, who's next?
David?
I am. Oh.
Ted,
Well-
you're it.
Yeah. Today is D-Day, you know.
I know.
Anniversary of D-Day.
Oh,
I know. I was almost going to change my name.
20 years. That's 20
Right.
years ago. It's hard to believe.
Mm-hmm.
This is D-Day, and Ira's the only one without a D on this program.
That's right. It's David, Don, and Dan. Maybe I'll change my name to Dunkirk.
Make it Dirk for short.
Dirk?
Yeah.
You might get stabbed.
Well, what are we listening to now?
This is a record made in 1944, and on a V-disc. It's Louis Armstrong again, with an all-star group that had...
Do you think you're Jack Bradley?
No, Don thinks I'm completely obsessive, and he may have a point. No, but it's good to play Louis because it gives you a certain barometer for everything else, so that you know. I mean, that's the way I feel about it. I mean, if
You don't have to defend yourself.
for yardsticks. That's
We
it.
know you like Louis Armstrong.
Yeah, from beginning to end.
Yardbird isn't a bad yardstick either.
No, not at all. Play that too. This is, as I say, a V-disc, and it starts off with a trombone exchange between Lou McGarity and Jack Teagarden, who unfortunately is no longer with us. Billy Butterfield and Bobby Hackett are the trumpet players. Ernie Caceres plays clarinet. Johnny Guarnieri on piano. Herb Ellis on guitar.
Yeah.
When was this made?
44. And big rate plays. Al Hall on bass and Cozy Cole on drums, and this is the famous Jack Armstrong blues. Strong. what more can I say? It's chirping like the birds.
I'll tell you one thing, when you're playing a record like that, there's no doubt about listening. I mean, it just magnetizes you.
Perhaps for the benefit of some of our younger listeners, we should explain what a V-disc was. The V-disc were records that were made during the war for the armed forces of the United States. And musicians contributed their services. No one was paid for these records. And a lot of things were made on V-disc and never came out commercially because they were not allowed to use them. And after the war, all the masters of V-discs were chucked up.
I remember a picture.
The picture of the
Yeah.
down the
It's a
yard
terrible-
axe.
Just like hearing about that. So.
But it's like, of course, like burning books in Germany.
No, the reason for that was no, there's no comparison. The reason was that because people hadn't gotten paid for them, these were
It's
a
money.
donation. But fortunately, some of them did survive, and
Yeah, foot lockers and sea bags and
were collector's items.
carried out of different army posts.
George Simon was in charge of recording jazz.
Bless him too.
I think you may know.
All of them?
Yeah, most, some were made in Europe. That was later.
Well, right after the war, this record was made, and it's a pretty wild record. In fact, it's called It's Wild. It was done for Aladdin or Philo at the time with Illinois Jacquette's band. And I don't know the exact personnel, but I could safely say it was Sir Charles Thompson on piano, and good probability that it was the basic rhythm section of... Could have been Shadow Wilson,
There you go.
could have been Rodney Richardson, I'm not sure, or Freddie Green. At any rate, is Illinois Jacquette, and It's Wild.
You're tuned to the Saturday Afternoon Jazz Show coming to you from WBAI in New York City. Back now to the third and final portion of the Jazz Show.
Well, that certainly was wild.
That was wild, and I hope the listening audience accepts my apology for saying I'll be back with you in a minute when I completely left out my three cohorts. Back to
Colleagues to you.
Colleagues. Back to Illinois Jacquette.
Well,
What do you mean by that?
We're not going to hear more from Illinois Jacquette.
Well, I think we've heard
I think we've heard
pretty much
That
everything
was,
there is to be
wasn't that I
heard.
Found a New Baby?
Yeah.
He likes that tune.
I Found the New Baby.
It's a good tune.
I Found the New Baby became Dickie's Dream with Lester Young, then it turned into Alan Eager's Vot Stott, and now we've heard it as It's Wild with Illinois Jacquette.
Eldon made it again later on with Roy Eldridge and Verb and called it Achtung. This is going to be the oldest record, I think, that we have played so far. and probably the oldest one that we're going to play. But it doesn't sound very old. It was made in January of 1937 by Roy Eldridge and the fine little band that he had then at the Three Deuces in Chicago. The band which included his brother on alto and as arranger, and Scoops Carey is the alto soloist that we're going to hear on this track, and Truck Parham on bass, the one and only Zooty Singleton on drums, Cozy Cole's brother Teddy on piano, and Johnny Collins on guitar. And this, I think, is one of the finest records Roy ever made. This one, and then Rocking Chair, and some of the later things. But this is certainly one of the milestones in the recorded career of Roy Eldridge. For some reason or other, this was called Wabash Stomp when it came out on the record. Not very imaginative title, and I don't think that was Roy's title for it. Roy's title, I think, was Dismal Days. Anyway, here it is. Very exuberant and also beautifully controlled, 25 years old. Roy Eldridge was when he made this out in Chicago. This was on a very excellent Epic LP, which has stupidly been discontinued, called Trumpeter's Holiday. And Columbia, with which Epic is affiliated, has just come out with a Chicago Jazz anthology, 3 records, has some very fine things in it. It also has 3 tracks by Roy from this particular session, but it does not have Wabash Stomp. I think, granted, that Heckler's Hop is great.
Well, Florida Stomp they could have...
well, no, or actually, well, anyway, when they had 3, one of them should have been Wabash, which is a classic. But I suppose one has to be grateful for small favors.
Besides, you have no records to listen to at home.
Not too bad.
Oh, well, I'm not thinking about myself. I'm thinking about the people. No, because let's face it, I mean, when Martin Williams wrote a very good thing in Downbeat, I think, when he wrote about jazz reissues. I mean, when you reissue things, you should bring out nothing but the best. Then every now and then you can allow yourself a little historical footnote or something that isn't primarily of musical interest, but it should really be the music first, and then...
In the case of reissues, they're done specifically for collectors. They're not done for the masses, and therefore the collectors should be uppermost in their mind as far as the marketing and the sales is concerned.
I don't think they're done for collectors. I think they're done, and no record company puts out a record without thinking in terms of selling as many as possible. And things like the Duke Ellington set and the Billie Holiday one is sold very well, and not just to record collectors.
Yeah, those are names.
Yes, but an album of jazz of Chicago of the 30s or the 20s, whatever it was, is not set out for commercial.
Yeah,
it's not going to have the appeal.
Yeah, but I don't really think that's the point. The thing that Martin said that I liked was that there were very few people that were qualified to attempt something like that because they didn't have, so to speak, all the bases covered.
Right.
To put out things that are of historical importance, and like there's a Jelly Roll Morton track on this album that has some historical value. But man, so what? I mean, it stinks. It's a bad track. It is no good to Jelly. It's no good to the record. It's no good to anybody except somebody who like, man, I have all the Jelly Roll Morton records. Well, like, you know,
that's
those
the
are 9 cats.
Well, those people are not interested in that anymore because they have the 7.
They have it,
They're not
yeah.
interested in reissue.
Then you're getting back to Matrix numbers.
No, it's the person qualified to put it together.
Well, that's the problem.
And you got to, if somebody is, you know, you can see, you can pick up a reissue when you go through it, know whether this person, the person who did it, really did it or just goofed. I do.
Well, anyway, whoever put together this Trumpeter's Holiday did a good job. Frankie Newton on this and Red Allen. Then, of course, there's Wingy Manone. It's all right, too.
Yes.
We're going from 1937
to about 1951, I would say. Roughly 50 or 51. This is a record that is no longer available. It was on the debut label of Charlie Mingus, and some of the debut things have been reissued on Fantasy here in the United States, but this one hasn't. It's the Max Roach Quartet with Hank Mobley on tenor, Walter Davis on piano, and Franklin Skeet on bass. This was Hank Mobley's first record date when he came over from Newark and joined Max's quartet. I don't think it's particularly his best record. He certainly developed more afterwards. But something I like about this track is that it's complete, something we were talking about before. It's a complete performance within a short space of time. And it's called Kismet. It's written by Hank, and we're going to hear it now. The Max Roach Quartet featuring Hank Mobley and Kismet. And I like that arrangement at the end, the way Max is interweaving. And, you know, for a quartet, I think they're playing a lot of music. And you don't find that everywhere today in that short space of time. And Hank, this is right before Hank joined the Messengers, I guess, and Art Blakey. And he was playing in that same general style when he made those first records with the Messengers of the Cafe Bohemian.
Terrific Max.
Yeah, Max is smoking.
And it's fun to see Frank Skeet on that day. He's not playing with Red Allen at the Metropole. And there's a sartorial note. He recently grown a beard.
Oh, really?
He's a hell of a bass player.
Yeah, well, I was telling you, I heard him up in Boston once with Prez's group, when Prez had Jesse Drakes, and he had a rhythm section of Connie Kay, Skeet, and Horace Silver, and it was cooking pretty good.
Leonard Gaskin, he was on some of the earliest bop records, and now he's on many Dixieland sessions. In fact, that's where he's located pretty much.
Well, he worked Eddie Condon's for 10 years.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was in a band with Miles and Dexter and Bird on 52nd
That's
Street.
right. And he made the first Dexter by power recording. Long time Dexter.
His first record.
That's right. It's a magnificent obsession.
Thank you, Alan.
And a trumpet solo, and a magnificent one, made in 1945, shortly after the Jack Armstrong Blues, next month as a matter of fact, in January. And it's Louis with a 10-piece band, which has Billy Butterfield in the trumpet section, and Carl Kress on guitar, and a very nice piano from Dave Bowman. It's a beautiful mood, and Louis sings and plays, well, this is called I Wonder.
Well, 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 little baby.
It was Louis Armstrong and I Wonder, 1945. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Well, that tune was written by a fellow who died a few years after. It made him famous. His name was Cecil Gadd.
Oh, he was in
Private Cecil Gadd.
Private
He was
Cecil
a-
Gadd.
Played some good piano too. But it was rather more of a blues.
Like a blues ballad.
Yeah.
Blues ballad. But Louis makes it into a Louis number.
It's very funny that after every time David plays a Louis Armstrong record, there's silence in the room. Nobody really knows what to say.
Well, somebody always jumps in and starts blabbing.
I'm going to play kind of an unusual record. In fact, I'm going to give the personnel after the record. It's Chopin's Minute Waltz. That was rather a cute arrangement of Chopin's Minute Waltz, played by a group led by Charlie Ventura, including Red Rodney on trumpet, Charlie Kennedy on alto, who didn't take a solo on this LP, which was an abbreviated version from the 12-inch 78, which had Charlie Kennedy's solo on it. Teddy Napoleon at the piano, Alan Roos guitar, Red Callender bass, and Nick Fatul drums. The nucleus of this band was from the Gene Krupa band at the time, and the Red Rodney solo, I think, was a minor classic.
I like the way he worked in the Chopin-esque.
Yeah. And as I said while the record was on the air, that it's been 10 years since I really listened to Charlie Ventura, and I must say that at this point I really enjoy listening to his playing. At one point I was a little hesitant. Another interesting aspect about Charlie Ventura is the reminder of how much influence Ben Webster had on white tenormen of a certain period. And Charlie Ventura and Georgie Auld, Flip Phillips, Frankie Sokolow, Vito Musso, they were all white tenormen of a certain generation, and they were all very strongly influenced by Ben Webster.
Brute force.
Well, somewhere in the background you'll also find the smiling presence of Coleman Hawkins.
True, but I think it really has not been brought to fore, this particular influence, and I think maybe the reason is that most of these musicians were white musicians, and white musicians many times do not get as much credit for their playing as they should, and if they had, then the Ben Webster influence probably would have been publicized more freely.
Well, Charlie Ventura always talked about Chu Berry as being one of his big influences at the beginning,
Yeah.
but you can definitely hear the Ben Webster.
Yeah.
rasp and breathiness. And Danielle?
Big sound. Here's a gentleman who I'm very happy to learn is going to be at Newport this year, and it would be worth going to Newport just to see him. His name is Stuff Smith, and he plays a fantastic violin. Stuff plays amplified violin, by the way, which enables him to sometimes sound like an entire orchestra. And but the only person who remembered that Stuff Smith was in existence during the 50s was Norman Granz. Yeah. And
You better count your blessings.
3.
and don't rustle papers while I'm talking.
See, he's totally inconsiderate.
My goodness. What did he write? Name dropper. Yeah.
Well, you can't mention a name when he said name drop.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to drop a few more names here among the assisting artists on this track, which was recorded in 1959. And Paul Smith is on piano, Red Mitchell on bass, and Sid Balkin on drums, and it's all they can do to keep up with the terrific tempo that Stuff sets on Take the A Train. Pretty fast A Train. Conducted by
He's really
Stuff
fiddling,
Smith. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing Stuff at Newport. It's been quite a while. I missed him when he was at the Embers.
Yeah, I heard him there, and he...
Yeah.
Well, but that's no place to have somebody with an attack like that.
Oh, you can help it above the clatter.
No, he was playing. The night I was there, it wasn't too clatterous.
Yeah.
Swing is swing. It's swing.
If you can't tap your foot to it, it's not swing.
What did Miles once say? You can't feel it up your back?
That's what it said in the print.
Yeah. Speaking of that, did you see his blindfold test?
Oh. Well, I think he was unjust to Cecil Taylor.
Dave Shilkraut on alto sax, Alan Eager on tenor sax, Danny Bank on baritone, but he doesn't solo, Ernie Royal on trumpet, Kay Winding, or as he's called at the Playboy Club these days, Kai Winding. I'm told that's the correct Danish pronunciation.
It is.
Thank you, Dan.
Tad calls him Kai Winding.
Winding. I was once on a road like that. Let's see. Vinnie Burke on bass, Art Mardigan